Hi, my name is Ann Lackey, and I'm the broker of Solid Source Property Management. I wanted to take a few minutes to talk with you about self-management. A lot of times we get owners that think that they can manage their property themselves once they have a tenant in the property or a tenant that's interested in renting their property. So I wanted just to kind of go through a couple points for you to consider. First of all, as a professional property management company, we have access to a wide variety of screening techniques and tools. Remember, we evaluate hundreds of applications a month versus one or two. We also comply with the guidelines to get an actual copy of a tenant's credit report. Now, tenants don't always have great credit, and we understand that, but we know what to look for and what not to look for, or what not to really care about. So understanding how to read a tenant's credit report and understand if they're going to be a reliable tenant or not is a huge advantage when you're looking at renting your property out. A lot of owners think all we do is collect the rent, take our fee, and then pass the proceeds on, and certainly that is a portion of what we do. However, just in the rent collection alone, there's a lot of things that have to happen in order to get everything properly accounted for. At Solid Source Property Management, we actually invoice our tenants every month, which allows them a reminder that their rent is due. We think that this is very important. Tenants are used to getting bills and paying bills, so if you don't send them a bill for their rent, we have found that the ratio of getting rents to not are a lot higher. So we actually always invoice our tenants, and then at the 5th of every month when we haven't received their rent, we send them a late bill immediately. So again, getting them into the habit that they need to pay their rent on time. And then let's say they don't pay their rent or whatever. There's a specific process that you have to go through in order to motivate that tenant to pay. And of course, as a professional property management company, we understand those steps. But a lot of times an individual owner doesn't understand everything that's involved in going through that particular process. Other things that happen along the way, again, when we do a lease, it is a lease typically for 12 months or more. And anytime you're in a long-term relationship with anyone, there are challenges that come up, there are things that happen. So part of what we do is manage the tenant. We do that through having a 1-hour new tenant orientation when we get started to go through the expectations of what we expect of them and also what they can expect from us. Things like, how is maintenance handled? What happens if you're going to be late on your rent? What happens if you have a change of email? All of these things that come up. What if there's an HOA violation? How do you get and access amenities? All of these things are things that we deal with up front with the tenant. So these are things that if you're thinking about self-managing, you will also need to kind of consider how are you going to structure that relationship with that particular person who's living in your home. How are you going to deal with maintenance? There's laws with what has to happen and what time frame and how maintenance is handled with the tenant. So you want to make sure that if you're going to self-manage that you understand what your obligations are as an owner and make sure that you do that. Non-repairs or failure to repair is the one reason in Georgia that a tenant does not have to pay their rent or can do what's called a rent deduct. You never want a tenant to deduct a repair that they've done from their rent. You have no control over the cost, all these types of things. So maintenance is a huge issue that, again, it has legal ramifications of, and if it's not handled properly, can get the landlord into a lot of trouble. Speaking of compliance with the laws, there are very specific laws called the landlord-tenant law. You can Google it. It'll give you, probably about 60 pages of things that are there to govern the relationship. These are the things that we find most landlords don't really understand. And so you need to understand what you are committing to when you allow someone to live in your home and that you are receiving compensation for that. You also need to make sure you understand fair housing laws. Although, if you only have 1 up to 4 properties, there are some leeways that you can have as an individual owner. But if you're using a real estate professional to market it, Doesn't matter if you're using a property management, you are still under those fair housing guidelines. So you need to make sure that you at least understand them and make sure that you are not advertising in a way that would be prohibited. You want to make sure you treat everybody fairly, and that's not always the case that we see with an individual owner. You need to make sure you do your move-in and move-out inspections. There again goes back to understanding the law and what a tenant's rights are under the law, to make sure that those are done properly and within the correct time frames, and making sure that you comply with the notice that's required when a tenant moves out. Otherwise, there's up to 3 times the security deposit as liquidated damages immediately due to the tenant if you're not in compliance. So again, you take $1,000 security deposit, you make one mistake, the tenant sues you, you are then in violation, and the judge will award you $3,000 that you then have to pay to the tenant. Other things that happen, even with the best property management company, things go wrong with the tenant. They lose their job, they have medical issues, all that kind of stuff. If they don't pay their rent, again, there's a specific process through going through evictions. One of the benefits of using a professional property management company is we take care of all of that for you, and we do so at a reduced cost typically than what you can do, and we can get it done faster because of the volume that we have. We work with agencies that don't work with individual landlords, that will work with us to get basically evictions in bulk. So these are, again, things that you can save on. When you look at the fact that you've got a $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 home, and you're paying a management company, you know, anywhere from 8 to 12% of the monthly rents, look at that as insurance. Look at that as for, you know, the fact that you're getting something that doesn't require a whole lot of involvement on your part. Also make sure that you understand that it's really there to protect you. This is a large asset. It's probably one of the largest assets that you own, and you're going to turn it over to a complete stranger. So you want to make sure that you understand all that's involved with management, and it's not just collecting the rent check. If you have further questions or would like to speak with me, you can reach me at www.rentalhomeatlanta.com or by phone at 770-416-1444. My direct extension is 310. Again, that's 770-416-1444, extension 310. I certainly would love the opportunity to speak with you and help you in any way possible and manage your rental property for you to save you from all these headaches. Again, this is Ann Lackey, broker of Solid Source Property Management, and we can be reached on the web at www.rentalhomeatlanta.com.